For those of you that participated last year, go ahead. You might remember that we rolled out a new strategic plan in 2021. And so we structured our agenda today to walk through updates on our strategic plan throughout the course of last year. So each of the directors here will have an opportunity to walk through different aspects of the plan as we go. We'll pause for questions at the end, so for those of you that are online, if you have a question throughout the presentation, you can put that in the chat, and then we'll get those questions asked at the end as well. But I'll do a quick intro. Go ahead. So most of you in this room probably know that MPW is a municipal utility, and that means that it is community-owned. It's owned by each of you, and that brings a lot of benefits along with it for Muscatine. First of all, and probably most important, is local control. You have local leaders making decisions for the utility here in Muscatine, and they're making decisions just for what's in the best interest of the community. Next is we focus on low rates, not profits. I like to say there's nothing wrong with profits, but in our case, it's just not a motivating factor. We don't have to balance profits against other priorities. When we have a net income at the end of the year, it goes right back into lowering your rates in the future, or reinvesting in infrastructure on the system, or saving for larger investments in infrastructure down the road. And last, certainly not least, is this concept of neighbors serving neighbors. So most of the employees here at MPW live in Muscatine. They're your neighbors, and when we make decisions about the future of the utility or how we operate day to day, we think about how it's going to impact our own families, our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues, and I think that makes a difference when it comes to how you operate the utility and the commitment you have to your neighbors throughout the year. So if you talk to MPW employees, you'll most likely find out that we have a lot of pride in what we do. We have pride in being a part of this utility. And some of this recognition, we'll walk through a few of these awards later on, but I think it demonstrates that we set a high standard for how we operate this utility here in Muscatine, and it's neat to be recognized on occasion. We've received several awards and recognitions for different things over the years, including being in the top tier in terms of our electric reliability statistics, being recognized for having an excellent safety record, being recognized for how we communicate with our customers and how we share our message with the Muscatine community. And then the smart energy provider we'll talk a little bit about, but we've been recognized for 2 cycles for having forward-looking policies, focusing on things like electric vehicles, energy efficiency, offering renewable options to our customers. So we're really proud of the recognition. I think it's a reflection of the standards we set for ourselves. So this is your Board of Trustees. We have a couple of members here with us in the room, and these faces should look familiar to you. They're local members of the community. They're MPW customers. They participate on the same boards and organizations, and you see them at events in the community. They're local here. And I can tell you, serving in this role, we're really lucky to have this group of folks, very talented, dedicated, committed group of trustees that lead this utility for you. And this senior leadership team that you have up here and you'll hear from today, we have right around 20 years of average service with MPW. And I can tell you, I'm really proud to be a part of this very talented team that serves you every day. So I mentioned our new strategic plan that we rolled out last year. When we went through that process, we identified 5 core kind of overarching strategies that we identified to help guide our progress in the next 3 to 5 years. First is develop great employees and leaders. We have to start here. We have to start internally. We need to develop great employees and then continue to build our skills year after year, and that will ultimately drive good results for our customers. Next is to give customers reasons to love MPW. We want to go beyond just good customer service. We want our customers to really love being served by MPW and having us as their local provider, so we look for opportunities to drive that devotion. Third is to invest responsibly in reliability. This is just foundational to what we do as a utility, reinvest in infrastructure. And we've got a really good history of reliable service because of those investments over the years, but it takes continual reinvestment and long-term planning to maintain that reliability in the years to come without negatively impacting your rates. Fourth is to power the future. You probably heard us talk about this over the last year. We're in the middle of a fundamental change in how we provide electricity in Muscatine. And so it's really important that we get that right, because the decisions that we make will have long-lasting impacts on your rates, your reliability, and the environmental impact of our operations. Next is to grow our services. So while we maintain a strong focus on our core customers in Muscatine, we also look for opportunities to expand the services we provide to those customers, as well as look for some opportunities to expand where we provide those services to areas outside of our territory, but still part of the Muscatine community. But when we do that, it's really important, and we always maintain a focus on what's the impact to our current customers. A lot of times when we expand those services, it allows us to lower the rates for current customers or keep rates low, because we're spreading fixed costs over a larger customer base. And so it generally works out to be a good thing for our core customers when we evaluate those opportunities. So with that, now we'll roll through each of those strategies and provide an update on our accomplishments over the course of the last year. So take it away.
Great, I get to start off talking about some of our employees and our development programs. You know, we invest in our employees through quality training and professional development. New employee training focuses on learning about all three utilities, some background of the utility industry, thinking about learning our processes and our culture, and getting acclimated to work at the to the work we do here at the utility, and learning some about the Muscatine community if people are new to the city. We continue to evolve our leadership training to meet the needs of a changing workforce. We prepare staff for future promotional opportunities and support their professional development. Our programs like Principles of Leadership Training, HR Book Club, and our Women's Leadership Group, our internal Women's Leadership Group, help support those goals. So I want to take a moment and talk about our Safety Award. Back in March of last year, we were awarded the APPA Safety Award of Excellence for 2020. So that recognized that we were second amongst our peers with similar work hours and a similar size employee body. And it's nice to have the teamwork on the safety side recognized by our industry peers, because it's not just one department. It's not just the safety department that was responsible for having a great safety record in 2020. It was all of our employees being conscientious about their work and being careful in how they work together. And, you know, we think about workplace safety not just in the benefit of avoiding accidents, but also because it does have a direct benefit for our ratepayers.
We received the Smart Energy Provider Award again. The Smart Energy Provider Program is a best practices designation for utilities. The program provides national recognition of utility efforts in energy efficiencies and sustainability with providing affordable electric service.
And we understand that whether our communications are effective are in the eye of the receiver. We were happy to be recognized by our peers at APPA for our new website, for our year-in review customer newsletter, and our Powering the Future short video. All of these materials were created by or under the direction of our very creative marketing group. Throughout 2021, we leveraged Microsoft Power BI as a tool to visualize business data analytics. Early adopters at MPW led classroom training for other coworkers and shared tips in super user meetings. Our talented staff have now created many insightful reports to measure progress, see trends and outliers, and enable us to react faster and make decisions faster.
Working smarter, not harder, is easy to do with MPW's in-house geographic information systems. Throughout 2021, the GIS department built new tools for MPW staff to be more effective in the field and created public-facing maps so our customers can see what's happening with outages and when hydrants are being flushed in their neighborhood. Deploying tablets to the field also gives employees highly accurate maps with real-time updates instead of looking at old paper maps that can only refresh maybe every 6 or 12 months. This helps prevent mistakes in the field and keeps crews well informed of system changes.
Customers are the center of our focus at MPW. As Gage mentioned, we're customers too. With the belief that every experience is an opportunity to delight a customer, MPW staff are encouraged to take the initiative to add value whenever possible. Nearly every day, we receive a customer compliment about excellent service provided by our staff or observe a team going above and beyond to deliver a great customer experience. We appreciate all those comments and that effort and celebrate with our staff. We launched our new website last year with the goals to make it easier for customers to find information and do business with us. With our new vivid graphics, streamlined content, and more self-serve options, results show our reimagined pages are hitting our target audience. To make bill pay easier, a QR code was what is added to our utility bill and will be added this year to reminder letters and disconnect notices. COVID impacted many households in Muscatine. We started looking for resources that would help our customers in their time of need. Besides our own Project Share heating assistance program, customer service staff were able to facilitate nearly $240,000 in utility bill assistance for our customers and helped 63 customers get or stay connected by participating in the FCC's Emergency Broadband Benefit Program. That Internet Assistance Program is transitioning to a new $14 billion long-term program. So we're helping those customers transition at this time and identifying more customers who may be eligible for assistance under the new program. And after several years, we converted our final customers to fiber in the first quarter of 21. Our all-fiber network has the capacity to meet customer bandwidth growth for years to come. We currently deliver residential speeds up to 1 gigabit per second, and we are delivering 5 gig services for some of our enterprise customers, and we've been doing quotes for 10 gig services. We're positioned for easy scalability. We provide wireless internet service to customers outside our fiber service area. We completed an upgrade on that system, which improved service reliability and increased internet speeds to those customers. Like our fiber project, equipment throughout our fixed wireless network, including equipment at customers' home, was upgraded. So even though we're a small provider compared to our competition, Muscatine doesn't have to worry about falling behind with our state-of-the-art network. And finally, after nearly 30 years with our current customer information and billing system, we will be transitioning to iView Connect. iView is a product of National Information Solutions Cooperative, or NISC, which serves over 500 utilities and telecoms across the nation. In the age of doing business via smartphone or tablet, MPW customers have long been requesting an app. iView Smart Hub app will provide customers that account management at their fingertips. Customers will be able to view usage and billing, manage payments, notify customer service of account or service issues, and receive special messaging from the utility. County residents getting their electric service from REC may already be familiar with Smart Hub, which they launched last year. iView gives us opportunities to streamline providers for billing and payment services, and we'll be communicating to customers any changes that might be needed. We have a fantastic project team working to go live with the system by the end of the year.
One tool we continue to leverage is feedback from our fiber system. MPW staff have now built an outage management system where related outages are automatically identified and now proactively alarm our operators for a quick response. The day of taking multiple calls trying to figure out the cause of an outage is over. Now we can dispatch our crews with reliable information and get them where they need to go. We've also expanded the use of GIS and tablets to solve field patrol issues. One of the hardest things to track during a storm is those multiple small outages and down line calls. Well, now with an app, we can assign those. The crews can self-dispatch and update us right from the field, which reduces communication, phone calls, and the possibility of errors. What it means for our customers is efficient dispatch of our line crews to quickly respond to your needs. And although we haven't had any widespread outages for some time now, we continue to drill quarterly on our incident command so we're fresh and ready to go when the challenge presents itself.
Well, MPW employees are active throughout the community, supporting the organizations and activities that connect us with our neighbors and make Muscatine a great place to live and work. And we were really happy to be able to get back out there again and be able to do some of those activities that we love.
MPW is proud to receive the APPA Excellence in Reliability Award. Again, we have been working for several years to increase our reliability numbers, and one area is animal protection. Animal protection is really protecting animals from electric shock because that causes power outages. The statistics show that our efforts are working, and we continue to examine each animal contact to see if we can improve on how we build and protect our infrastructure. The result is fewer outages to you. One of our larger investments in reliability is our new transmission line shown on the right. This line, built with our partner SIPCO, will give us the flexibility we need to be reliable and meet demand as we reconfigure our generation portfolio. The water system also had a great year of investing in the community. We aren't just replacing aged infrastructure, we're improving it. We suffered some main breaks on Kindler Avenue, which resulted in unplanned school closings. And this is a big inconvenience for everyone, we realize that. So the team redesigned the main, added a couple of new valves, and now we're able to feed the Susan Clark Junior High from either direction. And with the new built directly in front of it, there's less likelihood of anything going wrong to interrupt school activities. We also added a new section of main on the west end of Fulham. By installing 300 feet of pipe, there are now 2 feeds into the subdivision. Previously, if there was a break, we could have that entire area without water. And now there's an additional 63 lots being developed, so it was a timely upgrade. And the Animal Protection Program was expanded to support communications reliability last year. There were some fiber outages due to animal chews, and the best way to prevent these is to go ahead and prevent the animal from getting to the lines in the first place. So we installed a piece of plastic around the bottom of the pole, and it's called a lower pole wrap. We installed almost 7,000 of these. This prevents the animal from climbing up and causing the problem in the first place. We used GIS to track the progress to make sure we were hitting the main line in the highly vegetated areas first, because that would have the biggest impact. We call the lower pole wrap project Wrapped Up, and we now hope to see continued positive results.
With our fiber to the home project wrapped up, our planned next upgrade was to our enterprise network. As part of this project, we upgraded our core network and increased our capacity from 60 gigabits to 800 gigabits. This positions us to easily and quickly scale up customer connections to meet their growing needs. If you look at the image on the right, we added a second fiber path around all of our backbone locations and added paths in a spoke and wheel format in the center of the image to increase redundancy for that network. Equipment at backbone locations were replaced 1 for 2, allowing full failover. The last phase of this project is to upgrade customer equipment at their location and configure them to the new network. This work will be coordinated with customers in the coming months. You've likely seen our logo change on our vehicles and buildings, or maybe online on our website or on social media. We know we'll be remembered for a long time as Muscatine Power and Water, or even more casually, Power and Water, but we are purposefully transitioning to the initials MPW, maintaining a link to our name while being more inclusive of our 3 utilities. The updated logo keeps the familiar drop and dots. The drop represents our original 1900 water utility, and initially the 4 dots represented a cross-section of a Hendrix cable, well known in our industry as an electrical cable designed for high reliability. Today, after over 100 years, in expansion of our service offerings, we like to think of the 4 dots representing the connection between our customers and our 3 utilities, water, electric, and communications. The logo represents the dedicated men and women who have served their neighbors as a provider of reliable and affordable utility services for generations. As such, the MPW brand evokes trust, stability, and pride.
It's easy to fall into the trap of out of sight, out of mind, and some of our remote buildings were getting in poor repair. So we put an emphasis on improving those remote facilities that we don't see regularly. Last year, we demolished an unused building on Sampson Street and then repainted 2 substation buildings. For the buildings to better blend into the neighborhoods, we decided to move away from the utility blue to a color called Repose Gray that would fit in nicely. This year, we will be upgrading the exterior of our Oregon substation.
Regular investments are needed to maintain our corporate IT equipment and systems. We leverage our purchasing power when possible for equipment purchases that support both our corporate network and our ISP network. Purchasing from one provider allows us to get more bang for our buck and streamline third-party maintenance and support contracts. An upgrade to our corporate firewall provides us more protection from external intrusion attempts and increases the number of employees who can work seamlessly remotely. This was especially helpful to us as we faced COVID exposures throughout the year and needed to be flexible from where employees worked.
Cybersecurity is a serious concern for us, just as it is in your homes and in your businesses. And in recent years, we've really stepped up what we do with cybersecurity to address the ever-evolving challenges and threats to utilities. We've added staff, we've incorporated detection tools, we've made investments in technology, and we have ongoing testing and training for all of our employees.
All right, so 2021 was really a follow-up to the 2020 power supply study. And just kind of as a recap of things that the recommendations for the 2020 study were that we start transitioning to a more efficient and cleaner energy resources, which includes the transition from coal to natural gas and the addition of extra renewables. So more specifically, it also talks about diversifying our portfolio and not putting all of our eggs in one basket and leaving an open position for future additions as this technology, the market changes, and federal incentives change. So more specifically, investigation into a 30-megawatt solar array at the Grandview Avenue Wellfield, combined heat and power unit, which we'll talk about all these pieces a little bit more, the retirement of Unit 7, 8, and 8A, which was approved by the board at our August board meeting, and then tentatively plan on the retirement of Unit 9 in 2028. So in 2021, MPW engaged a consultant to help us out with the solar project. Now, this is something that's new for us. The project was bid by multiple vendors, and ultimately, MPW selected Ranger Power as the lead developer. We're currently in the process of PPA negotiations or the contract for the power purchase from Ranger Power. That's ongoing. Also, on a parallel path, we're working on the interconnection process into MISO. MISO is the market, and we have to have permission to connect into that or pay the cost for the upgrade. So we need to know those before we sign on the dotted line as well. So that project is now turned into a 24-megawatt project. I remember the investigation, all of the power supply study is a high-level investigation. Our job now is to really dig in deep, find out what it means to Muscatine and how that asset actually fits and performs here in Muscatine. So that's what these investigations are about. So accounting for all the setbacks that are in the well field for the roads and the wells, kind of that picture up on the upper right, I just saw that as we came in. You can see that it's not one continuous string of solar panels. It's kind of scattered. So ultimately, when they did the layout on it, it ended up being a 24-megawatt project on that Grandview Avenue well field. And it's now called Muscatine Solar number 1. Expect that project to go online in the fourth quarter of 2024. So one of the key pieces of this project is local industry participation in our Choose Green Business Muscatine program. And what that's going to do is help our industrial customers meet their sustainability goals, at the same time meet MPW's CO2 reduction goals. The next big piece, the best performing dispatchable local generation resource in 2020 power supply study was a combined heat and power unit. So we have a great site that has all three pieces to make a combined heat and power unit work here in Muscatine. That's not normal to have that. We're very lucky to have that option. So anyway, we kept pursuing it. It performed very well in the power supply study. So in 2021, MPW worked really closely with Stanley Consultants to evaluate the right size of combined heat and power, and also take a look at all the different configurations of combined heat and power to come up with the right solution and gather localized, accurate data to put back into the power supply study. There were 40 potential combinations of turbines and configurations, and that got narrowed down to 4. Which will go back, all this refined data, as I said, along with other updated costs for environmental costs, the solar pieces. We're going to rerun the power supply study and take a look at make sure that these perform the way they did in the original study. Some of the other advantages of having combined heat and power are that it uses clean natural gas. It's low water usage from both the aquifer and the Mississippi River. It has a useful steam output, and that's what it does is it takes what's generally heat that's generally lost in a system, captures that, and reuses it for marketable steam. It also has all of the units that we looked at have the potential to add hydrogen. That's a developing gas. We're not sure where it's going to end up yet, but manufacturers are putting quite a bit of work into developing that technology. It's not a power plant. It's a parking lot, right? So I'm going to try to talk a little bit, give a little background, try to talk about some of the major pieces that go into energy. It's not, it seems pretty simple, but there's a lot of pieces that go into making reliable energy for our local community. And the two biggest pieces are capacity and energy. So they're a little bit different. Capacity is like the high school parking lot, right? You have to have all the spaces for all the cars you need on the peak day when all the kids are there, right? So you have to have enough to cover your load. For MPW, we have to have enough generating capacity to cover the load. And then the cars represent the amount of energy that's in that parking lot at any one time. So capacity and energy. It's the first time I've tried to explain this. We'll see how it goes. In addition to energy, MPW supplies voltage, frequency, and load response. So another 3 more things that go along with more than just the amount of pennies it takes to make a kilowatt of energy. So anyway, we'll just start on the bar chart on the left. So we're going to talk about capacity on the left and energy on the right. So, and it's going to go over time. You can see we have today, 2024, and 2028. So for capacity, as a MISO load-serving entity, MPW has to have enough capacity or the ability to cover our native system load with a little bit extra at all times. And we have to prove that as well. So the black horizontal line on the chart on the left represents our native system capacity requirement for forecasted for the future. The bar chart on the left, you can see we have quite a bit of extra capacity. And that's really represented by Unit 9, and then everything above the blue line, besides the green part, is the Unit 7, 8, and 8A. So as Ryan mentioned, with the retirement of Line 106, we won't need that extra capacity for reliability anymore with the addition of this extra line. So and the green part at the top is South Fork Wind's capacity. So in 2024, you can see that almost all the capacity is supplied by Unit 9, but now we have Muscatine Solar number 1 represented by the yellow right above that, and we have South Fork Wind above that as well. When we move to 2028, we have the retirement of Unit 9, and we'll be switching to getting our capacity from the natural gas unit, Muscatine Solar 1, and South Fork Wind. The gray part there is the open part of the portfolio I talked about in the beginning. That's the recommendation to not fill that capacity completely up until we see how the electric industry lays out. So one other piece as we talk about capacity is not all capacity is the same. So a thermal generating unit, it gets a capacity accreditation in MISO of about 90% because it's available anytime you need it. You can crank it up and down anytime you need it. That's the way we run right now. The solar, which is in yellow right here, gets a capacity accreditation of about 50% right now. So a 30 megawatt array gets a capacity accreditation of 15 megawatts. So it's not apples to apples. And in 2028, at the way it's set up currently, the 13 megawatts of wind at South Fork Wind will get an accreditation of about 2.9 megawatts. So it's really based on its ability to contribute to the amount of energy needed in the system at the time that it's needed, at the time it's needed. So it's not apples to apples. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, right? So on the right-hand side, we're talking about the amount of energy that Muscatine needs all year long, represented by the black line over time. So today, let's say the bulk of our energy is produced by our local generating units, some energy from South Fork Wind. We still buy some out of the market because sometimes the market is less than the price of our cost to produce energy. So we back the units or shut them off and buy some out of the market when it's low. The next bar in 2024, you can see plant 1's retired, Unit 9's online, and it's supplying most of the energy. Now we have Muscatine Solar 1 helping out and South Fork Wind. And we're still buying some out of the market. In 2028, it flips quite a bit to where we've got about half of the energy produced by the natural gas unit. The size hasn't been determined yet, so it's about half of the generation that we'll need in Muscatine. Muscatine Solar 1 and South Fork Wind. Another gray part, again, that's that open part of the portfolio that leaves us the ability to adapt to changes in federal incentives, changes in technology, and also react to whatever the market's doing in the price. We may be better off to buy out of the market at that time. So, not much there. Let's go to the next one. So, we're going to see some big changes in our environmental impact. With the retirement of Plant 1, Units 7, 8, and 8A, we'll see reductions of 25% in our CO2 emissions in 2024. And then switch to coal from coal to natural gas will reduce our emissions by about 65% in 2030. Along with that, we'll see reductions in PM10, 2.5, NOx, SOx, and reduced water use from both the aquifer and the Mississippi River. So 2028 is still a long ways away. So we have to maintain our existing units, keep them reliable, and keep them safe to operate. But we have a dedicated group of employees that are just as dedicated as the folks that started this out 100 years ago to taking care of making sure that we have reliable and safe energy here in Muscatine.
So it's really important that our customers understand this energy transformation. It's not easy. And we have hosted a customer forum. We hosted an open house event that allowed customers to learn about powering the future and engage directly with Doug and Gage, the rest of the senior leadership team, about our transition. We appreciate the coverage that these events receive from both the Muscatine Journal and Discover Muscatine to further inform their readers. We augmented these events with a dedicated Powering the Future webpage on mpw.org, articles in our customer newsletter, Facebook posts, appearances on the Muscatine Today Show, and by request, Doug has presented to several service clubs and professional development groups.
All right, on to growing our services. We've had our electric vehicle for almost 2 years now, and we're seeing great performance and reliability. We usually drive it mostly just in the city, which is where your gas mileage suffers, but we're seeing the equivalent of over 90 miles a gallon. And with some help from the Volkswagen grant, 2 additional charging stations were installed downtown at the Merrill Hotel and the library just last month. We currently have a 4th charger in the warehouse, and we'll be working to find a place for that in the Park Avenue area. We still have one unclaimed $1,500 early adopter rebate for purchasing a new EV or plug-in hybrid. Combine that with the federal tax credits, charger availability, and it just might be the right time to switch to an electric vehicle.
To stay relevant in the communications utility, we need to continue to deliver product offerings that meet customer expectations. We worked with Pam Collins' team at Musser Public Library and Chris Anderson's team at Discover Muscatine in launching their own channels in the last year, along with work on Muscatine Access Channel 9 and Civic TV Channel 2. MPW customers can stay connected with what is going on in their hometown. Each of the local channels has its own niche, and we love the diversity of content. And we thank Chad Bishop for being here today, for recording and editing our Power Breakfast for broadcast later on our local channels. Last year, we launched a partnership with Iowa Community Advertising Network, or ICANN, to further help local businesses succeed. ICANN brings enterprise-level resources to our local market and more channels on which businesses can advertise. If effective, affordable cable advertising is in your future, Warren John is here to help you develop a customized, targeted advertising strategy to meet your goal. We also launched 2 new products aimed at our enterprise customers, a MeshNet internet solution, and we started offering enterprise phone, offering SIP and PRI services. If you have interest in learning more about those services, Scott Holmes, our business development specialist, will be happy to discuss your needs and offer a solution to meet those needs. Access to high-speed, reliable internet is no longer a luxury, but as important as traditional utility services like electricity. Internet delivered by a direct fiber connection is the best you can get. Completion of the Fiber to the Home project and a board policy change enacted with our new fiber infrastructure is allowing us to extend our services into underserved rural neighborhoods in Muscatine County while still protecting the interests of our core customer base. With a combination of planned capital budget funding, return on investment analysis, and a small one-time connection fee, we completed our first fiber extension on Solomon Road into the Rolling Meadows subdivision this year. Larger extensions along Highway 22 from Geneva Hills Road to the Skylane Road area and north of the bypass in the Tipton Road and Bayfield Road area will become a reality with our application and award of state broadband grants. Designed specifically to grow rural broadband access, these grants will reimburse 40 to 60% of eligible project costs. But even with the state grant, the project at Tipton and Bayfield Road did not meet our return on investment analysis and was only possible with an additional contribution by the county. And we thank the county supervisors for helping us make that project a reality. These projects will make fiber services available to about 400 new homes and businesses, eliminating the digital divide they currently experience. Design and engineering for those projects will occur this year, with construction starting in 2023. The projects have a deadline to go live in 2025 and 2026, but we'll get customers turned up as quickly as we can.
In June, the trustees approved revisions to the water service rules, which paved the way for a new an existing subdivision to take our water services. This project is a win-win for MPW and the subdivision because they receive higher quality water and we increase our customer base like Gage talked about earlier. Louisa County officials put together Louisa County began discussions last year to explore the option of taking our water services. They want to supply Wapello, L&M schools, and some surrounding communities. This is due to aging infrastructure and poor water quality. MPW worked with Louisa County to put together a recommended rate for the water. Louisa officials are now engaged with Southeast Iowa Regional Planning Commission to pursue engineering services and funding for the project. The design and the construction of the large water line will fall solely on Louisa County with no risk to Muscatine citizens. And the potential benefit is, again, lower rates for Muscatine as we expand that customer base. It's important to note that with any of these expansions, MPW will always protect the interests of our core customer base, and we would only sign into any of these agreements if it provides a positive net benefit for Muscatine.
Well, save the best for last on the financial report to give you some ideas about what we're doing. Lucky for you, I'm a financial guy with some marketing experience, so I won't spend too much time on the 120 slides I have for you. Financial results for 2021 were good. We had $3.8 million of net income. That compares to $6 million in 2020. And we also did much better than budget. We had a budget of a loss of $4.2 million, so $8 million of difference there in what our results were. So that's dramatic. And I'm sure you're asking, well, why the big difference? And why the big difference from 2020? So we'll talk about that. And as a reminder, these numbers are unaudited, so we're still working on that. A net income picture, if you look at it here, it's pretty basic. But for electric, water, and communications, we had income in the 1 to 1.5 million range, so all three utilities did well, and good steady performance. And then one of the reasons for the difference, get to the next slide. Go ahead and click it one more time when you get it working. But I'll just keep talking. We had a big difference in the numbers for the budget because wholesale markets. So if you think about what happened in 2021, we had very high wholesale market prices. What we do, and Doug talked about it, we sell our output to MISO, and then we buy it back. And what we were selling to the market with the way our units were running, those prices were very high because natural gas prices were high. And you've probably seen some of that news. And even in February of last year, we had, if you think about this just a year ago, we had temperatures here in Muscatine or in the eastern Iowa for 15 days that if you average the highs and lows, it was only 4 degrees. So it was very, very cold last year. We had natural gas prices that were $100 to up to $400 per million BTU. At that time, the market was more like $2 to $3. And those are just spot prices, but it tells you the extreme conditions we had last year. Because we had just one more. because we had Unit 9 running, we benefited our customers by $1 million. If that unit had not been running, it would have cost us $3 billion. So we had a very good February last year, and natural gas prices stayed high. So throughout the year, we were burning a lot of coal. We were doing the things that we needed to do to keep our units running, and that's why we had so much of a better year in 2021 than we planned to have. And even if you compare to 2020, we actually did better because we had 5.8 million more of depreciation in 2021 than we did in 20. So it's not a... So you can see here all the ups and downs for our results compared to budget and last year. One interesting thing, too, for water, we had almost 1 billion gallons more sales in 2021 than we planned, and more than 2020, just additional use from our largest customers. And then communications margins were good because our margins were good, and we over-budgeted for depreciation. So overall, very good year in 2021. Our cash was way up as a result of all those things. So we had 82 million of cash at the end of last year. That was 26 million more than we anticipated having, and 13 million more than we had at the end of 2020. That's in part because of all the things I talked about related to wholesale markets, our selling in the wholesale markets and benefiting our customers that way. But what we also did is reduce our coal inventory. So in 2021, we reduced our inventory by almost 350,000 tons, and that's about $11 million. So it's a big change in what we had at the start of the year to what we had at the end of the year. Next slide. So capital expenditures were also down in 2021. We planned to spend significantly more than we spent. They were $13 million under. Part of it is delaying some of our costs on line 106, so more of those will be spent. More of those dollars will be spent in 2022. And also communications and water were also under budget significantly. So talking about our budget process and giving you a sense for that. So we go through a long process. We start soon for 2023 with our budget process, and it won't be finalized until November. So it's a very extensive process, and it'll encompass all the things we've talked about with solar purchase power agreement, the chip unit, retiring and decommissioning coal units are in our 10-year projection, and line 106 completion in the second quarter. We'll actually be rebuilding our Grandview station. That's a significant cost for us in 2023, and the new customer information system is about a $2 million cost. So inflation. When we look at our 10-year projection, you see the numbers there of 2.5%. That seems pretty low. I checked the numbers today. The CPI was released this morning. It was 7.5% for the 12 months ended January. That 7.5% is over some of the projections. People were saying sort of 7.2 to 7.3%. So we're still seeing high inflation. I feel our budget's in pretty good shape because a lot of the people who were putting budgets together in the fall recognized that certain things were more expensive. So our inflation in the budget's a little higher than actually the 2.5%. And then we'll see increasing interest rates, and we plan for that. We have generally flat sales. It's not like our electric sales or any of our sales dramatically changed, with the one exception we had with water for our large industrial customer. But we'll also see, we plan to see more of a return to normal market conditions for MISO. That hasn't happened yet. January was still a high price month with high natural gas prices, but they're starting to decline. And we'll have continued investment in line with all our other objectives. So I've got 6 more slides before we talk about a couple other things. And each one is set up so I'll talk about the budget and then talk about the projection. So on the electric side, positioning for power of the future, our CapEx, capital expenditures, next year at $17 million, and $9 million of that is for line 106. We also have a Unit 9 outage in the fall, so one of the last big outages we planned for that unit. and that's expensive for us. And we also have wholesale revenues that we plan to have lower by $15 million. So it's a big change for us. For the projection, we plan to spend $175 million over 10 years just on the electric utility capital expenditures. We're planning on rate increases of 2% in most years except for 24 and 25 at 3%, trying to keep those steady. We're planning for the retirements of 7, 8, and 8A at the end of this year. Solar energy purchased with that capacity coming on in 2024. A chip unit commercial operation date of January 2028. So the chip unit by itself is a capital expenditure in that $175 million of $107 million. So it's a big component of our total. And we're looking to borrow in the range of $80 million to help fund that. So we're taking that cash that we've built up, using that in part for the chip unit, and that's one of the reasons we have significant cash. On the water utility budget, we've got CapEx planned at $2 million. Biggest component of that's West Hill Sewer Separation. We've got operating margins that are steady compared to last year, and net income that's steady compared to last year. So we expect our water utility to perform pretty much as it did in 2021. For the projection for water, still significant capital expenditures, $19 million over 10 years, and the annual rate increases sort of declining. We hope to goes down from 4% to 3% and then 2% thereafter. Retirement of the electric generation units means we have less water going to our power plants, and that's significant. It changes some of the pumping requirements for our water utility. And if you compare that to the water that Ryan talked about for Louisa County, what we lose from Plant 1 is much higher than what we would provide to Louisa County. So there's an offset there that's very significant. Again, steady performance for water. For communications, capital expenditures, $1.4 million budgeted, and biggest share of that is their share of the CIS system. And then operating margins, expect them to decline a little bit, but not much, and then net income pretty steady. So for $14 million of capital expenditures planned over 10 years, and then that includes the NOFA 6 build-out, but doesn't include the NOFA 7 build-out. And much of the timing, it takes a lot to put the money in to begin with, and then have to wait to get the grant money back. We have planned video price increases of 6% in 2022, and then sort of 6 to 7%. And then no increases planned for the internet service. So 2 more slides. We provide significant benefits to the community, not just the city, but our community in total. So that benefit is $3.6 million in the form of lower rates than what other rates are nationally and locally. And then if you think about the free services we provide to the city, to other aspects of our business, and also some of the things we're doing for hydrants, for street lights, it's very significant, and that totals $1.8 million. So conservatively, we're looking at about $5.5 million of benefit in 1 year that we provide to the community. And then electric rate comparisons look good because we're on the electric side, you see that we're under for all our significant categories for residential, commercial, and industrial. And then for water, also lower. So if you're just looking at residential, for example, on the electric side, just under 12 cents per kilowatt hour, and that compares to Iowa at 13 cents and USA at almost 14 cents.
So that concludes our update on our progress for 2021, and big thank you to the directors for putting the updates together and the staff for getting everything coordinated. But as you can see, we've made quite a bit of progress on the strategies that we laid out last year in 2021. There's a lot of activity over the course of the last year. But what we see is we're really still positioning ourselves for continued progress in the years to come. So with the strategies we laid out, there's still a lot of work to do. There's some big stuff going. Power in the Future in particular, there's still multiple years of that initiative left. But I really think we're well positioned to continue to make progress on those initiatives in the coming years. So with that, we'll take some questions. Again, if you're online, feel free to type a question in the chat, and we'll get to those. But any questions in the room here? Santos?
You mentioned the coal 2028. Are you planning on completely shutting off all coal across your organization?
Yeah, so the question is, we talked about planning coal plant retirements, with the last one being in 2028, and that is the current plan. So we have 3 active coal units now. 2 of those units should be retired around the end of this year or early next year. And then Unit 9, the last one, we are planning for a retirement date in that 28 time frame. So that one's not officially, formally, decided yet, but that is the plan as of now. Yeah.
With switching to more natural gas in the future, what are your plans to hedge that price fluctuation and supply issues?
Yeah, great question. So the question is about how do you plan to hedge natural gas prices? I think if you look back at what happened in February of 2021 and what happened with the market and gas prices, and now what's happening in the industry and what you see in our plans is that the gas, how you heat your business and homes and how you provide electricity to your business and homes, and now are both dependent on the same fuel. So that causes additional risk. And when you have those major events, you see some pretty big fluctuations in natural gas prices. So our plan is to put a hedging strategy, a formal hedging strategy together, much like you might do in an industrial operation where you're buying gas even multiple years in advance, a percentage of your expected gas needs. And then as you get closer, you buy more, higher percentage you build up. And then you'll always buy some out of kind of a real-time market, so you will still have some risk of fluctuations in pricing, but the goal would be to minimize the amount of impact of that. But that is also why, when you looked at Doug's charts, you can see that the amount that we plan to produce from natural gas is a smaller percentage of our portfolio, because we don't want to put all of our eggs in the natural gas basket as well because of that price volatility. So our plan is to balance that out and then look at other resources to fill in that portfolio. Good question.
Looking at shutting down the coal plants in 9, are you going to transition your labor force over to the natural gas? And when you shut down 7 and 8, are those employees going to be absorbed in, or are those jobs going to be gone? What's going to happen?
Yeah, another good question, Scott. So the question, and I'm repeating it for the folks on the web, sorry, was what about the staff impacts of those plant retirements, both the one that's coming at the end of this year and the one in 2028? So we've really been preparing for this process for a number of years. And so we've got a lot of positions that we have not backfilled. And so through attrition, retirements, other departures, we have a lot of positions open. Now that's put a lot of strain on the staff that are down there. We've got a lot of overtime in many positions at the plant to fill in those gaps. But we're trying to minimize the impact to staff. So I think we're going to be in a balancing act over the course of this year of maintaining enough qualified staff to keep the plants running, but also minimizing the impact at the end. We likely will have some small layoff at the end of sometime in 2023. We're trying to do our best to absorb those staff in other positions when we have opportunities, but we likely still will have a small impact. We're looking at maybe in the range of a half a dozen to a dozen positions. So that's in the shorter term. When we look at Unit 9 retirement, assuming we do build that natural gas plant, we will do our best to identify the positions that can slide over to operate the new unit, provide training for them to build their skill set to operate that new unit as much as we can. But it will take fewer staff to operate that plant than it does the coal unit. There are just fewer moving parts, fewer systems in place. So we do expect another staff reduction at that time. But again, we'll do our best in the years leading up to that to try and take advantage of attrition and retirements and things to minimize the impact. Sanjay?
2 questions. One on your conversion that you're talking about that you're going to do for the coal to natural gas. Are you actually converting your existing coal plants? Or are you capitalizing and putting in a whole new one?
Right, great question. So the question is, when we go from coal to gas, are we just converting our units to burn gas, or are we building new? The answer is we're building new. So we've evaluated just a straight conversion of our units. The problem is it's not overly efficient. So we talk about heat rate, but it's really efficiency of the units. And the efficiency goes down a little if you just convert. And then the cost of the fuel, natural gas fuel, is higher than our cost of coal. So you get less efficient and your fuel cost goes up if you do that. So when we've modeled it, a conversion doesn't look very attractive. By investing in the new unit, you take advantage of new technology. You have a plant that's specifically designed for the cycle and the way we're going to use it. And even though your fuel cost on a per unit basis goes up, your efficiency improves as well. So when we model it, even though you have to make a larger capital investment, it still pencils out better to invest in that unit. It also allows us to hopefully take advantage of that combined heat and power system where we can continue to sell process steam to our industrial customer that provides more margins back to the utility.
Okay, so my second question, the slide that Doug had when he showed the capacity of the parking lot versus the other one, what's the black line that you guys are actually saying that Muscatine has right now? How many megawatts is that you need to provide for Muscatine now? And are you anticipating in 2028 the new growth that we're going to continue to have in our community to see that need to grow in your megawatt?
Good.
Yeah, so great question. Do we have enough capacity and what do we see in the future? So right now, it's looking fairly flat. The load growth is about 0.5% a year. That's the projection at this point. It could change pretty drastically if we get more federal incentives for EVs, electrification in general. That will drive that load up and the capacity requirement up as well. And right now, you can see there's a pretty big gap in capacity, but right now, today, as it is, the cost of capacity to buy it out of the market is much less than the cost of new entry for a new generating piece of equipment. So that may change, and it could change drastically, but a lot of that is driven by the political environment rather than nuts and bolts.
What's the black line though?
The black line represents our capacity requirement.
What is it? Is it 50 megawatts?
Oh, this is about 150 megawatts over on the left. 150. It starts out, I think it's 153.9 or something like that, and it ends up at about 156 at the other side of this chart.
And that's a peak with a reserve amount. So our local peak is around 140 to 145 megawatts at peak, and we're a summer peaking utility. That's when our electric's the highest. But then we've got somewhere in the range of probably a 14 to 15% reserve that we have to cover on top of that.
And there's another dynamic with that. MISO, the accreditation process that I was talking about for the different types of energy, we were accredited and had to have enough capacity for the entire year. They're talking about a seasonal. There's even been talk about capacity by the hour, just like energy. So the accreditation may change for each one of these assets seasonally or even daily or hourly as this changes. Again, the industry is moving. It's a very interesting time to be here. But there are a lot of moving pieces right now. So throwing all your eggs in one basket at this point is kind of is a little scary. You may hit a home run and hit the right technology for the next 20, 30 years, and you may hit the wrong one. So we'll take baby steps into it. Great question, though.
Yeah.
As I look at this and I listen to the presentation, the gray area is the open section, I understand, and the orange is the natural gas. Now, the natural gas plant that you're looking at building, would it be able to supply the necessary needs of the community, or will there always be a need to purchase on the outside? And the reason I ask this question is I think about the other coal-fired power plants that will be shut down throughout the country, and what's going to come to the open market, as well as you look at the ratios and wind problems, you look at the solar fields and the wind turbines, how much havoc that can be caused. And as I see this, you're still going to have to buy on the open market to supply the needs locally. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me jump in. But what you can see here is we classify this as open, not just market. So we likely will fill in some of this with other technologies. So we show, phase 1, Muscatine Solar 1 here in our South Fork wind. I think it's most likely we'll add additional renewable options and additional renewable capacity to that portfolio to make up some of that. We could need to look at peaking units to make up part of that, to address that volatility and intermittency of the renewable resources. So, you're really touching on, some hot topics in the electric industry, because as those more reliable dispatchable resources retire across the entire country, you're seeing this same dynamic happen throughout the country. And those are the resources that are really the most reliable, especially in those major events like the Arctic storm that happened in Texas. So what does that mean if you're relying on others to provide energy into the community as their portfolios are going through the same transition and they're becoming more intermittent and less reliable? So it's certainly a risk that we're trying to manage and manage accordingly, but it's something that is a very real concern.
Yeah, I see more buyers on the open market is what I see, which normally drives the price up.
Yeah, so, and we see that fluctuate a lot. Capacity, so again, as Doug talked about, we got kind of two products in the market. Capacity prices have been quite low in MISO for a number of years now, but we do expect that to rise because of this same dynamic.
Thank you.
I can also share one little piece. We think about this a lot too. So with this natural gas unit, in the kind of conceptual design of the building, there's a bay for another unit. So we're thinking about that as well. There's some major costs with this that would reduce the cost of adding additional generation to, there's a connection. One of the major pieces is a connection to the natural gas transmission. So we will be thinking about whether we should size that for something in the future, just kind of trying to future-proof ourselves for what's coming. And as Gage mentioned, we'll probably be filling out some more of this with renewables, but that's also driven by incentives, the federal tax incentives, whether it's investment tax or production tax incentives.
One last question. So, with your Nova 6 and Nova 7 expansions that you guys are doing, and the knowledge that we know as county, seeing the growth that we have across the fiber, literally in Wilton and West Liberty, and the growth that we're seeing that, has there been any discussion with knowing that your employees potentially, that you're seeing, your other facilities closing down, that you may internally create like your own project crew in a sense to look at some of those projects internally versus subbing those out, because you're literally forcing yourself to go to the same resources that everybody's going to, and you're going to probably see a higher increase in requests for funding for some of those. Has that been a discussion your board has had?
We've talked about opportunities to kind of shift some of those resources around. I don't know. We've talked specifically about transitioning them into fiber construction crews. I think a little bit of it's still a temporary basis, but it could be a good transition. So no, I think that's something we can.
When you look at your overtime rates, you look at all your costs,
right,
your retirements, that's just a thought that you could say, hey, we could do this for 5 years and then roll those into different things, and that may meet the manpower needs that you have. But the cost for some of that fiber is going through the roof that we're seeing across the state, and with the future funding that the governor is going to give you, you're going to see that demand continue to increase, and then you're going to have to offset that somehow.
Yeah, exactly. You got all this grant money going out in the industry. Everybody's doing the same thing. They're building the same project, so that access to resources, which we saw even an issue when we were trying to complete the fiber to the home project, and that was before this grant money came through. So it's a real dynamic. So thank you for that. Other questions? Yeah.
Can you address the change with cable going down and internet going up more? Is that how you're going to address that? Because more people, younger generation, is not buying cable; they're buying internet service and streaming, and how the streaming is going to affect it.
Yeah, so we see that trend ourselves. In 2014, our subscriber lines crisscrossed, where the number of internet subscribers that we had surpassed our number of video subscribers. And what we see is, as if somebody cuts the cord, or maybe they downsize their package, so we have lots of options, so people can downsize packages, that does come back to us on the internet side of the business. because they do need that extra bandwidth to do the streaming. So ongoing subscriber growth, maintaining those subscribers is something that we look at, but it's a trend in the industry right now, and we are continuing to look at how we continue to evolve that product and be really conscious about any investments that we make in that business.
I think one of the things that's frustrating for us, being a little bit in the middle on the video side, we've got programmers, pushing significant price increases to us that, we have to pass on to customers, is everybody in the industry can see that subscriber decline, but yet they come back and ask for huge percentage increase when they come up for contract renewals, which just exacerbates the problem. So, yeah, something we talk a lot about is managing kind of that decline. But the benefit is the increase in internet. It allows us to offset a lot of that, and we still see that being very strong in the future. Other questions? Well, I think that is the most questions we've had on one of these, so congratulations to you all for setting that mark. But thank you seriously for taking the time out of your day, joining us at an early hour to hear about the updates going on in the utility. You can probably tell we get excited about this stuff. We're proud of this. We're proud of the utility. We're proud of the work that we do. So we're happy to take any questions you might have if you ever want to reach out to us in the future. Thank you all very much.